All right, folks, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is our organizational meeting for the town of Lodi, and will also double as our regular meeting for the month of January. At this time, as soon as I pull up the American flag, we can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please give me one moment. All right, folks, along with me, if you would. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, folks. Ms. Rossbaugh, would you please give us a roll call today?
Supervisor Barnhart,
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Latini,
Here.
Councilman Sibley,
Here.
Councilman Batman,
Here.
Councilman Thomas,
Here.
myself as clerk, and Frank Fisher.
Frank is here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rossbaugh. Much appreciated. At this time, are there any public comment, any additions to the agenda, or anybody from the public would like to speak on any issue whatsoever? All right, just before the meeting, we do have Jim Covert here with us. Jim gave us a friendly reminder that the bicentennial for the town of Lodi is approaching in a few years. But since, he just wanted to plant the seed so that we could start planning our big bash, whatever that may be. At this time, I will move to accept the agenda as issued. I have posted it in the chat box for anybody to check out. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Second from Mr. Sibley, I believe I heard first. All in favor to accept the agenda, say aye. Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Motion carried, agenda accepted. Do any board members need more time to review last month's minutes? I will post those in the chat box for the public. Hearing no further need, is there a motion to approve last month's minutes?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Thomas, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sibley, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Motion carried, minutes accepted. Do any of the board members need more time for the bills?
Nope.
Okay, that being said, I'll make a motion to approve the bills. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Latini. Any further discussion about the bills this month? My big note from the bills, we had a fairly large increase in workers' compensation from the county. They increased the rates by, I think, 33 or 35%. We did take care of that in the budget because we expected it, but it is a bit of a hefty increase.
Kyle,
Yes.
do you know why there were multiple invoices?
I think it's because we spread it across multiple funds. I think it was General A, Highway A, and Highway B, the way that it gets split up. Connie, do you know the answer to that?
That's correct.
Okay. Yep, I think
Comes
that's
out
why.
of different budget lines according to the usage. Highway uses a part and further.
Got it.
Would you like me to read you the budget lines, Deputy? No?
No, that's fine. It makes perfect sense now. Thank you.
Any further discussion about the bills? As we move to Zoom here, I know it's a little bit more difficult to have really detailed discussions about some of these bills or look at them as we do in person. So I know I send you all the vouchers, but really, if you have any questions or concerns whatsoever, I am always happy to scan in the actual bills and then send them to you so that we can have further discussion. So please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you.
No problem. We have a first, we have a second, we've had our discussion. All those in favor of approving the bills, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried, bills paid. Mr. Jacob, do you have a highway report for us this evening?
No, I found solid this month, finished the medium fill on Dean Road, the grade all and the grader back together, serviced some of the equipment out. Put a new plow ram on the 5500, went and picked up the milling today, and got the overhang on the town hall about 95% done.
Beautiful, we love it.
Thank you for that overhang, Rick. I can already see the safety features from it. And as we immediately turn to sleet and ice, I think that's a big, big help. So thank you very much to you and your guys for doing that. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Rick this evening? Rick, please stick around tonight. We have some engineering services for some culvert work from Dave Herrick at TG Miller under new business. So your comments might be appreciated there. Thank you, Rick. We can wait to move to accept these reports until after the reports have been given. We can just accept them all at once. So Ms. Rossbaugh, do you have a town clerk report for us tonight?
Remitted from Town Justice, $1,897, fines, fees, and reimbursements. Monies paid for clerk fees is $275 to be entered into general fund. Paid to Ags and Market for dog control law is $12, a total of $287. Register of vital statistics, we've had 1 birth, 2 deaths, 1 marriage, and from January 4th until today, we're at $102,765.82 in taxes collected and deposited. Really all I have right now.
Not bad. 10% in the first week. That's pretty good, Connie.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Ms. Rossbaugh? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the reports this evening. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Sibley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Reports accepted. Mr. Batman, would you like to give us a library report tonight?
Library report. Oh, where was it? I just had it.
No, I'm ready to sleep. It's no good.
Yeah, hold on just a second.
Take your time, Paul.
Where is it? Well, there's a.
I would offer to
this
get it for you.
report,
Go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry.
this report is in everybody's email.
Paul, I think you forgot to attach the actual report to the email, so I don't think we saw it.
No, it's in a little, there's a paper clip up in the heading.
Okay.
Click on the paper clip and then it should show up, or at least that's the way it works for me. I don't know.
I didn't get a paper
You
clip. We didn't get the
No?
attachment.
Okay.
That's okay. Go ahead and give it to us.
At any rate, there's nothing much new happening. They're having their annual meeting on January 26th at 7. It's going to be via Zoom also. The hours are still the same, modified hours. Portside pickup and browsing appointments available, still operating in that way. The Zoom offering for finding joy and ease with the long winter. Tyke Tales story time through Zoom is also still happening. Wednesday writer support is still happening through Zoom. And steampunks to-go packs we're still doing that. That's about it.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Anybody have any questions or comments for Paul? Thank you very much. No committee reports tonight since this is the organizational meeting and the first of the year. And for a county board report and town supervisor remarks, I will keep them brief. The county board met last night and we elected a chairman of the board and made our annual appointments. We re-elected Bob Heisen, town supervisor from Varick, as the county chairman of the board for his second year. He informed us it will be his final year as chairman. And he beat out Don Trout, town supervisor from Waterloo, for the seat, but we had no other business there last night. I will add one other thing that I'm working on with the county. The Upper Lake Road Bridge that was put in last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago at this point, we were subject to a certain percentage of a match. I talked to the county manager and the finance director last night, and we should be getting some of that money back. We paid, I think, somewhere around, and forgive me if there's background noise from my child, I'm so sorry. We paid about $10,000 to the county or the state for our match, and I think we're probably going to get about 75% of that back, somewhere like
Wow.
that.
Did they say why?
Yeah, they believe the former, what was his position? Director of Public Works. They believe he did the calculation incorrectly. And
Great news.
Sam Preen.
Sam Preen, thank you. And also the project came in under what they budgeted. I think they budgeted 1.4 million and I think they finished it for about 1.1. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so we'll get a little money back. Don't know how soon, but I'll let you know. Does anybody have any old business tonight? I don't think we do since it's New Year, but does anybody have anything they'd like to address?
Kyle, I'm not sure, in team, I'm not sure if it's new or old business where it fits. But I was in discussions with David A. House Sr., who's a lifelong Lodi resident. And he is on the town planning board and was interested in helping support any way, shape, or form and being a part of the new building committee. And not only representing the town, as a town resident, but also as a town planning board member. So his recommendation is it'd be great to have someone from the planning board, on that committee with Carol and team. And he offered and volunteered his services. He has a background in both commercial and residential construction. And so I offered that up to the team for their consideration. David is the, cousin of Martin, and Martin was the Lodi resident that recommended that we hire a FEMA consultant. And that is what led us to Ryan and Sue from Municipal Disasters. And anyways, so just wanted to share that with the team. For any interest, if you are interested, I do have David's contact information, and I would be happy to share that with you guys.
Thanks, Luke. I would love to bring David in as the chair of our planning board. I think that's a great idea. I'm happy to hear that he's interested, particularly as we have some planning board items on the agenda tonight. I also did reach out to him today to attend the meeting tonight because of that. So
I can't speak on his interest in the as a chairperson. The discussion we had was specific to the new town hall building committee.
No, I got you. I'm saying he is the chair of the planning board currently.
Gotcha. Okay.
Seth and Paul being on the building committee, does anybody have any reservations about that?
Oh, I think it's great.
Me
So-
too. I think by law, this is an advisory committee and the supervisor has sole discretion to appoint members to that committee. Is that correct, Frank Fisher?
Committees are established by the board, but the members of that committee are appointed by the supervisor.
Very well. Do I need to make a motion for that? Or how do I codify that, Frank?
As a practical matter, you can do it any way you like. Again, it's within the discretion of the supervisor. If you want to simply announce your appointments to the committees, you can simply do that.
Fantastic. With Frank giving us that advice, I'll appoint David Ahouse to the building committee. I'll follow up with him after the meeting and share the documentation of the work that the building committee has done. Thank you so much, Luke. That's great. That's great.
And then also on that line, I don't know if you consider it new or old, but volunteerism, if you will, in speaking both with David as well as Trevor during this last week. I think we're sort of on this line of if there's things that we can do with town equipment, like Rick and his team had prepared site work for the original location. If that's something that could be considered, as a cost savings measure that would get us more space, reduce the dollar amount, et cetera, that would be an option. I know myself I would be willing to take on like the leach field project. Could envision, let's say a leach field could be 10K. I know it has to be moved. You have to have training and certification in New York State to do that. And then let's say you would use the little excavator at the town with the team to do the excavation work and then sort of donate the time to put in the leach field. So there are things that I personally am willing to do. Trevor expressed almost concurrently a similar interest.
Absolutely.
And without any dialogue with David Ahouse, he recommended the same thing. So if there's ways that people can get involved in a coordinated way, in a way that we're covered with insurance and whatnot, I think that drive or that need and willingness to support is out there. So I just wanted to put it out there. Trevor was adamant. I'm pretty adamant. I don't think I could add much value other than to the septic system. And I would be happy to put in that leach field.
That's great. Thank you so much, Luke. And thanks for covering yourself as our insurance agent is actually in the audience tonight. Much appreciated.
Okay.
So I think the practical way to go about that is we have a project plan. The building committee's next meeting, I believe, is Wednesday, January 20th. I'll share all of that information with the building committee, and then we'll figure out how to incorporate you with the leach field, and then Rick and Trevor with the site work, and we'll get the ball rolling. Excellent.
Awesome.
Luke, let me just take that note real quick before we move on here. Okay. Any any more old business from the board tonight? All right, on to new business. We have an order here on the agenda. However, I'd like to switch it around a little bit to accommodate our guests. I will start with Ann Morgan, our town assessor, is here tonight. The way that this should work is there should be a motion and a second to introduce a resolution, and then we can have discussion. So at this point, Ann has sent us let me just get the wording right here, a waiver for the tax exemption that I will let her speak about here. Let me just put this in the chat box. Okay, so I have put the resolution in the chat box if anybody would like to see it. So I'd like to move, I want to get the language right here. I'd like to offer a resolution waiving the provisions of New York State Real Property Tax Law 459C7, 459C8, 467.5, and 467.6, pursuant to Executive Order number 202.83. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Sibley. Ms. Morgan, would you like to tell us what's going on here?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you all for having me. As they say, no good deed goes unpunished. On December 21st, we were made aware of this need for a resolution at the local level. On December 28th, the governor signed a new order that makes it mandatory, and what we're doing becomes redundant. My advice is to go ahead and pass the resolution. It covers you at a local level. We really have no choice. What this resolution does is every year our senior citizens, 65 and over, primary residents with low incomes, come to see us to renew that application, i.e. that exemption. This waiver rolls us back to 2020. They don't have to come see me for obvious reasons. We go with what they have unless they feel the need that their income has dropped or there's been a significant change in what they're doing, or we have new applications. At that time, people call us, we make an appointment, one person at a time comes to the office. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Connie Ruffalo, Town Clerk. Hi, Ann, how are you?
I'm good, sweetheart. How are you?
Not so bad. Richard Simonelli had sent in a question, and his question was, the senior exemption, is it for town and school or just property, town?
That's a really good question. It depends on the income level. Right now, the town of Lodi, the village of Lodi, and Seneca County have the same limits. But so
Okay, that's the 2,200?
22,000.
22,000, excuse me.
Yeah, that's the upper limit. 22,499 is if you are over that in income, you get a 0.
Okay,
Okay,
Okay.
it's called a sliding scale. And I tell people it's very confusing. It's why we make appointments and get them to come in and look at what we're doing, because it's all programmatical, obviously. So one thing I'd like to make very clear to the audience, this is not, I repeat, not STAR. STAR is safe and sound living in Albany. This is a local exemption.
And
perfect, thank
I have a question.
Thank you.
So this applies to folks who have made their application before, but what if they have purchased a home in the past year or have just become a senior or have not made their application before? Should they make an appointment with you?
Absolutely, please. Even just the discussion, they may be way over, but get that discussion going with your assessor. We're sending out packets every day.
Okay.
You currently have about 26 people, give or take, on senior citizen or disability exemption. And those are going out Monday. There's a letter I've made up to reassure them, to tell them everything's okay. You're not coming to see us this year unless you think there's been a change, then call me up, make an appointment. We'll keep you as safe as we can. We're really trying to limit people in and out for just like everybody else is.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thanks,
Any
Ben.
more questions for Ann Morgan? Any further discussion on the application waiver? I'll add that she did note that it is redundant, that the state has passed the law. However, I think that this is a nice move for anybody who pays attention to these meetings to be able to have a little bit more information. And then, of course, these videos go up on our town website, so people will be able to look at it there. Ann, is there a deadline for this?
Any exemption in a town in New York State must be received by the assessor March 1st. Now, we take that law just a little further and say that if it's postmarked March 1st, we'll accept it.
We like it. We like it. Great. Any further questions for Ann?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the resolution, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much, Ann. Thanks for all that you do, and good luck this season.
Kyle, is there a copy of that resolution somewhere? Is it in this monster packet? Did I miss something?
It should be under new business resolutions, and the name of the file is Resolution 2021 Waive Tax Exempt Application.pdf.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that.
Okay, it is in the packet. I promise you that.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may,
Please.
a shout out to Connie. Connie, if they gave an award for getting people to sign up to change their address, I'd give it to you.
Thanks, Dal.
You're the best.
But working
Connie,
vigilant here.
Connie, would you like me to send you the resolution in a separate email?
That's okay, sir. I'll locate it. Thank you, though.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Sorry, let me get my bearings here. Great. Next thing I would like to address tonight, we have a proposal from our engineer. His name is David Herrick. David has been working with Rick and the FEMA team, our FEMA consultants, to do the engineering work on our culverts and our roads and whatnot from the 2018 flood. In your prep packets, board members, under new business resolutions, and there's a folder called engineering services amendments, and there are 2 amendments in there. The second amendment covers everything that was in the first amendment. And Mr. Herrick is requesting an adjusted agreement amount for his engineering work of $149,750. And the work is for services in connection with Town of Lodi damage sites, Lodi Center Road, Porter Covert Road, Skinner Road. And part of this is also for Cat's Elbow. So with that, I'll make a motion to introduce the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Batman. At this time, I'd like to invite Ryan Freicholm to speak on the subject. Tell us what's going on. Tell us why we're getting a $150,000 request, if you could, sir. Just note you are on mute, Ryan.
How's that?
Perfect.
Hey, good. All right. Not using my laptop, so that's the reason. So the reason you're getting a change order is twofold, actually. First and foremost, when we began this process, there was a lot of concern relating to be blunt, like what would happen if the engineer just build and build and build, and how can we control this? So what I suggested was going in with a very low dollar amount so that you could kind of test the water, so to speak, with the engineer and get some level of comfort with how he bills, what his format was. First, make sure that it was acceptable, like in terms of how he wanted to present his hours. And most importantly, it gave you a way out if things weren't working well. If you signed a $200,000 or $100,000 contract with him, it may be more difficult to get out of it if he's at 90,000 and you don't agree with all the billings. What we tried to do is control what he would be able to bill up to. And so we set an artificially low dollar value of 30,000 with the idea that your board then would be in control of any incremental increases. Now, what Dave Herrick did is back in March, FEMA, and actually it was March of 2019, FEMA was requesting information of how much would it cost to do the additional engineering work at Cat Elbow. So Dave put together an amendment to his original engineering agreement and submitted that to FEMA saying, okay, this is what it would cost, because they had to get some ideas of what the soft costs would be relating to the Cat Elbow culvert project. I don't know what happened between 2019 and now. I thought this amendment possibly had been signed. I was unaware that it hadn't been. But the good news was there really hasn't been any major expenditures relating to that project, primarily because FEMA hasn't obligated it. And the work that Dave has done actually hasn't been excessive in terms of the initial $30,000 cost, or I'm sorry, the $30,000 not to exceed amount that was part of his first package. Recently, when I say recently, in the last few months, Dave and I talked and I said, all right, well, we've got Center Road culvert, which is actually Lodi Center Road, which is between, let's see here, it would be Seneca Road. It's just north of Seneca Road. There's a culvert there. There's the Skinner Road culvert, which is a very large project. That's a $250,000 project. And then there's a large culvert on Porter Covert Road that needs to be replaced. The Skinner Road project has been obligated and the Center Road project has been obligated, meaning we know that the FEMA folks have accepted the scope of work that was proposed. That scope of work was based upon some preliminary sketches that were paid for out of that first $30,000 allotment of funds that were approved to be spent by the town to David Herrick and to T.G. Miller. And so now what's going to happen is there has to be some additional drawings, primarily for permitting and for the ability to put these projects out to bid. Skinner Road's a pretty extensive project. There's some wetlands involved. That's actually the headwaters, I believe, of Mill Creek, or one of the headwaters of Mill Creek. So there's some technical issues there that need to be resolved with the DEC. Dave's including those details in his package here. Center Road culverts, part of the headwaters also, I believe, I don't think it's Mill Creek. It's maybe possibly Blackwell Creek or one of those other creeks that's to the south of where Mill Creek enters Seneca Lake. But what he has to do is present detailed drawings to the DEC for permits on all three of those locations. As part of the process, I asked him, I said, well, can you put together a task order that can be presented to the town so that first and foremost, Rick, as highway superintendent, can have a little say in terms of how the design gets worked out. Certainly there's dollars involved. I'm very cognizant that no town has a lot of cash laying around. So what we've asked Dave to do is offer up 2 suggestions that Rick can work with. So at Porter Covert Road, as an example, most likely it's going to be some sort of it's probably going to be a 60-inch culvert or a 48-inch culvert. It'll be sized according to the New York State requirements, DEC requirements, and there may be some options in terms of headwall materials. There will be some options presented regardless on each one of these projects, and there'll be some cost savings that are perhaps able to be gained by Rick when he undertakes these projects, if he takes them on himself or if he puts it out to bid. Regardless, there'll be the opportunity for Rick and for the town board members, if so chosen, to look into like what's the best choice of how to proceed here. So Dave put together the amendment. It includes the 3 projects, and the real key components are the task order number 3 of preliminary design and permitting requirements. So he's going to put together the couple of options that are required for each of the projects. He'll do bid assistance, which again, this is not a lump sum that he's going to receive. This is just an increase to his not to exceed amount. So if Rick says, hey, I'm going to do 2 of these projects myself, but I'm going to do the 3rd one as a public bid, then you're going to need some bid documentation, some proposal, RFP information, perhaps a bid specification book. So that could be provided. If Rick says, hey, I'm going to oversee all the phases of construction on all 3 of these projects myself, then task order number 6, which is the construction phase services, perhaps you don't need that. Rick can handle that. So again, this isn't a lump sum of $43,750 of guaranteed I'm going to be spending it, or shall I say guaranteed the town has to spend it. It's just an increase in the not to exceed amount of $43,750 for these projects. And one of the things that will be spent, which has been discussed and already approved by FEMA, is the hydrologic and hydraulic assessment. And that's something that they have to do because you've got headwaters of, first of all, one of the streams, I think the one that crosses under Skinner, way downstream becomes a classification TS, which is trout spawning. So the DEC and everyone's rather sensitive about that. The other creeks, interestingly enough, are not they're not as high quality, perhaps. I may be using the wrong words for them or for that classification. But again, with the idea that that work has to be done. So Dave's proposal here, it's kind of cryptic. I did look at it, but it's basically what you're saying is the original agreement was not to exceed $30,000. The amendment that this one requests is $43,750. That's for the projects identified as Center Road, which is about $109,000 project, Skinner Road, which is $250,000, and Porter Covert Road, which is $124,000. So that's the engineering work that would relate to, let's see, that's 360, about $400 some thousand of project work. The one project, or actually, before I even go on to the Cat Elbow project, does anyone have questions about what I've just talked about specifically relating to those 3 projects?
Yes, Ryan, this is Luke.
Hey.
Hey, so just a couple of things here. So the original statement of work and the RFP that we put out there, you said was, I don't remember the details, but it was not to exceed 30K with TG Miller. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, he had most of these, I think he had most of these tasks listed, but they just, the not to exceed amount was very low on
Low.
purpose.
So right. So for 30K, I thought for some reason it was 70 in total, but so it's 30K. What is the payout of that 30K to TG Miller at this point? Have they received payment for the work performed to date?
They've been receiving, yeah, they've been receiving payments. I don't know the dollar value of the contract to date that's been paid out, only because I don't track it that way. I have some information on some of the projects, but it's broken out across all the projects. So I don't have like a running tally on the TG Miller invoices, but I don't know if anyone, I guess your accounting person, maybe tomorrow morning, whoever, or Connie, if possible, whoever can go in and look up the TG Miller general ledger line item might be able to determine what they've been paid to date.
Because that would help me, sort of leverage what our spend is for TG Miller. So let's say line item 1 would be the original contract, and then breakout sub rows would be, what was spent, what was paid, what project that was allocated to. And then we have the new proposal for 43,750 for Skinner, Porter Culvert, and the third culvert for engineering cost, right? 43,750.
Actually, design work, correct.
That's design work. Okay. So that's just a little over 10,000 a piece, which seems a little high, knowing that they're culverts and drawings, but there is a lot to go into it, a lot of hoops, and certainly TG Miller has been there with us since the beginning of this. So that does sound a little high, but reasonable. But I think what would at least help me is to see it categorized by project to what we've spent. So what I'm a little worried about is not getting the bills, or we have one SOW out there, we make an amendment, we have another one, and then everything comes together, coalesces at once.
Right.
And then we choke on it. Now, granted, we have received FEMA money, so we could probably offset it, but I think that's not the best way to manage it. So
no, and really this conversation that we're having, that was the whole concept behind keeping a very low dollar value.
Absolutely.
Because you have control over it.
And we could manage it. So all I'm saying is, can we visualize it? I don't think there's anything out of order for a second, but can we visualize it so we can all have that transparency, then approve it moving forward? And then also, if that's acceptable to, it's just my opinion, you got the board, you got the whole team here. The other caveat would be, on top of the costing, what is our reimbursement schedule look like from the FEMA for their services? Because I thought the reimbursement was pretty high for engineering services, if not 100%.
The reimbursement right now, I've been dealing with different disasters all day long. I believe your disaster is being reimbursed at 87.5%. I believe correct me if I'm wrong, but Cuomo, I believe, increased
yes.
Yeah,
he said they signed up for the 12.5%.
Right. So you're receiving 87.5 cents on the dollar for any of the engineering costs that are being spent. One of the good things is at Center Road, just at Center Road alone, there was, I jotted this down, you had $5,000 of engineering costs, $10,000 of contract administration costs, and $5,000 for hydraulic and hydrology studies.
Yeah.
So right there's $20,000 just for Center Road culvert.
Yeah.
I believe the Porter Culvert project had, and I'm rounding numbers, you had $4,000 for contract administration, $5,000 for engineering, and I believe another $5,000 for an H&H study.
Got it. No, that's, yeah, I'm with you on that. And then it was also my understanding that if we do not follow the prescriptive Code of Federal Regulations, meaning if TG Miller does not follow the prescriptive permit requirements And if we don't follow, the RFP and other actions, that in the end closeout, we may be liable for the cost. So I think that's the other driver
Right.
for doing the documentation. I mean, it really pains me to hear that we're going to have to do hydrology studies because it's a trout stream, and the DEC requires it. That really, that it
Well,
makes it tough.
it's interesting. The DEC now, they've just changed the rules. Even on a Class C stream, which is basically, it could be like a seasonal stream basically, or a ditch. They're requesting that if you increase any size of a culvert anywhere, that you have to do a hydrology, an H&H study to make sure that you don't flood out what's downstream of there.
Yeah.
So
And then-
using Skinner Road as an example, even though that's got a pretty heavy grade to it, I mean, if there's a 24-inch culvert that automatically backed up floodwaters into a floodplain behind it, and now you open it up to 48-inch culvert, that all that additional water running downstream could have catastrophic effects
Yeah.
downstream. And the crazy part now is the DEC, the FEMA folks are saying, and I got notification of this, they're saying federal dollars will not be used to reimburse a town if the components of the project don't meet all permit requirements. So
Right.
in the past, we could kind of, I wouldn't say skirt through it, but you could use a rule of thumb or go by the seat of your pants because, let's say you always knew a 36-inch culvert was there and you decided to just upsize it to a 42-inch or to a 48-inch culvert.
Right.
In the past, no one worried about it. Now they're saying, well, you need to do an H&H study to prove
Yeah.
that you didn't cause damage downstream.
I'm with you. So again, going 100% aligned, I would just ask that we have an itemization for each of the SOWs that we have had with TG Miller, where in the payment schedule with that are we, and then what are the new proposals sort of summarized, and then I
Sure.
think that we could move forward. That would be my recommendation.
Right. And one thing on that note, I don't believe, and Rick, you can jump in here, but certainly as long as Rick doesn't retire all of a sudden on us, but as far as construction phase services, that's something that's easily managed. These projects are, although they're large, they're not real technical. So it's something that, I look at this task order number 6 and think you might need a little help up on Skinner Road because you're going to need some grade stakes and some other stuff. But the other creeks, the other 2 locations really aren't too crazy. And if Rick takes on one of these projects, you're not going to need a topographic survey. You can actually just set the grade stake, and Rick can say, okay, here's what my outlet is, here's what my inlet of the culvert is. He can set the culvert accordingly, do the work, and you're more in control of your monies at that point. And that's always been the goal. And I think everyone on this board that's been around for a little bit knows that we really are trying to keep the control with the town as much as possible on all these decisions.
Thank you for that,
Hey,
Ryan.
Ryan,
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
is Lodi Culvert Town Line Road invested in with these ones, or is that gonna be a separate one?
Well, no, this is interesting. All 3 of these are separate projects.
Right.
So you can do them. You have 3 separate projects, but the Lodi Center Road culvert is part of the $43,000 not to exceed new, or that's the increase of $43,000. But you don't have to lump them all together to bid them out. You can do them individually or whatever format you want.
Ryan, I think he was asking if it was Town Line Road. Rick, I don't think so. This is Lodi Center Road, Porter Covert Road, Skinner Road, and Cat's Elbow.
Yeah, between Wilkins and Seneca, it's that culvert that looks like it's got like a bed frame headboard, metal.
Right, I know where you're at. I was just wondering if they've done anything with the Lodi Town Line Road, because I've had people ask is all.
Lodi Town Line. Whereabouts on Lodi Town Line?
Town Line Road.
Lodi
Right
Town Line Road.
Off from Bachelor Road there, or Darling Road.
I'm just trying to think where it is. Lodi.
Hold on, let me.
Going towards Jenny Lake and
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think of the project number. I'm going to go into the portal right now and see if I can find it really fast.
So while I'll filibuster for Ryan for a minute here.
Okay, thank you.
We have two amendments in front of us, but as I mentioned before, amendment number 2 actually includes amendment number 1 as well. So it looks like we're seeing two different amendments. We sort of are, but they are both included on amendment 2. So I think Ryan's about to talk about cat's elbow a little bit.
Yeah.
So the cat's elbow amendment is for 76,000. And the amendment for the 3 other projects that we just spoke about is 43,750. This would bring the total adjusted agreement amount from 30,000 to 149,750. And then I'll add from the financial side, the process of the FEMA dedicated bank accounts has been slower than I anticipated. The account has been created. The bookkeeper has it in her hands. She's bringing in Lee Walter, our CPA, to make sure that everything is absolutely as tight as possible and that all of these line item projects are separated and have their own little lines. That way, when we go to pay these sorts of bills, they come directly out of the correct project and not out of just a sort of a big pool, if you will.
Perfect.
We met with him once.
Yeah, well, he does our audit every year. He's coming back. How recently did you meet with him, Rick?
About, me and Nancy talked to him about 2-3 weeks ago.
Okay, I think he's coming in within the next 2 weeks to
Because
settle it out.
He called and talked to Susan to get some of the paperwork so he could understand it.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I can jump in here, Rick, I just looked, I've got a town line road project. And that project has 100, that's been obligated, and there should have been an obligation in the amount of $114,000. Paperwork should have been forwarded. Now, I know that things have been going slow out of New York State, so it's possible that it hasn't hit you yet, but there would have been a check or a dollar value of a deposit of about $85,000 coming toward the town for the FEMA account checking account.
I'll look at the blue books tomorrow, but I assume that one would probably have to have a permit, a DEC
Yeah.
permit.
It might be, yes.
Because it has, I think that water over there goes to Interlake and Rovid someplace.
Oh, right. You know what? You're absolutely right. So
Thank you.
so yes, as far as that project goes, and that's part of, that would probably be covered under, some of that $30,000 that I don't think Dave spent all the $30,000, to be honest. If he did, then some of that 30,000 that he spent would have been allocated and will become allocated to Cat Elbow. But right now, I don't think he would have said something. I'm really quite certain he would have said something.
Yeah, I'm sure everything's straight, but it would nice to see that accounting
Yeah.
rolling into this, and then that could be used as sort of the stepping stone, not just for our edification, but we could use and build from that in managing the cost accounting for these projects.
Well, I can ask him to put it to he's been keeping, this is the good news. He was keeping track of his costs or his site visit hours, so his expense of time. He was keeping track of it on a per site basis, and then we're able to collect all the sites that are assigned to, let's say, Porter Covert Road, and we can assign all his hours to those sites and assign them to a specific project. So it is trackable the way he's got it set up.
Excellent. So yeah, I would just show that, and then you have the scope of the 30K covered, right?
Yes.
And then for each project moving forward, you have their breakout. That to me is crystal clear.
Okay. Yeah, I can have that put together. I know. Do you have a board meeting next Monday night?
We don't.
No.
Well, we're not anticipating it, but we could.
Oh.
I mean, we could have one anytime.
Is there a way we could approve what we have today with an amendment that be done? Or would we have to see it? That maybe is a frank question. Would we have to see the output of that to make the, to align on it and vote on it?
It's up to you. The proposal is that you vote on a resolution to amend the existing contract. You can vote on that at this point if you want to, but if you want more information, you can wait for that information. It's up to you.
Luke, is there a measurable that, if we approve it with an amendment that says, we approve this pending X, Do you have a measurable that we would
Yeah,
need?
I would say we approve it pending an accounting summary from TG Miller be provided for all existing SOW contracts in play. And then that, as well as the assigned, I didn't look at this, I didn't see the paperwork, but as well as the assigned output for these additional projects in dollar amounts. So it's sort of all like summary on one sheet. So we said, okay, well, we have a statement of work with them or a contract with them on this date. It was for 30,000. It included these 10 projects or 5 projects or whatever it is. And those have been paid out or are coming due or, you know, whatever it may be. And then the new projects for engineering support beneath. So it's like a very clean and concise, I don't know how to verbalize it, but a very clean and concise mapping of TG Miller's support for these various projects, because it seems muddy to me to not have that accounting of the 30K, but yet we're asking for specific, you know, 43,750 for Center, Skinner, and Porter Covert.
So I would say you're just simply asking for the report, not necessarily for board review, but you just want to make sure we have a clean, I'm going to call it an invoice for lack of better terms, but a clean spending report back and forth. So I would say, in my opinion, you are offering an amendment to approve this resolution pending a spending and receiving of payment report from
By
TG Miller?
project. By project, yes.
By project. So there's a motion on the floor for an amendment.
Hang on, please, one moment for,
I got you, Connie. I got you.
pendant, spending and receiving report
By project.
by project. Okay, go ahead, thank you.
So there's an amendment. A motion. Sorry.
Kyle, can I interrupt a second?
Yes, please.
Kyle? Yeah. I'm sorry, this is Frank Fisher again. Did you move the original resolution? Because
Yeah,
you
we
can't
are
amend
moved in second, and the resolution, the amendment is being discussed.
Okay.
at this point.
Okay, thank you.
I learn a lot from my county work, Frank. Thank you. Motion by Mr. Latini on the floor to accept this resolution pending a spending and receiving report by project from TG Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Sibley. Any discussion for Mr. Latini's amendment? I'll just add that I think it's reasonable and it makes sense, and without us having the answers for how much of the 30,000 we've spent, I think it's a good idea. Any further discussion?
Just
Hearing
sounds
none.
like
Oh,
a good idea.
Mr. Batman, please.
Just sounds like a good idea. A little further clarification.
Great.
Yeah.
Hearing no further discussion, we need to vote on the amendment. All of those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The amendment is carried. Any further discussion on the motion as amended? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the amendments 1 and 2 from TG Miller to increase the not to exceed amount to $149,750 pending a spending and receiving report from TG Miller, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Frycomb. Thank you, Mr. Fisher, and thank you, Luke, for your very diligent work on that subject.
You're welcome.
Moving on, our next piece of new business. We have our town insurance policies renewing in February. I've been working with Ed Boudreau, who is our new agent as of last year, and I've had quite a great working relationship with him so far. He did help us through the flooding that we experienced in the town hall, which I actually don't know if I've seen the payment yet, but I know that the claim was approved. So as part of the town insurance policy, when I signed it last year in my first weeks as a supervisor, Mr. Boudreau encouraged me to add a cyber protection policy. Being new to the town board, I declined it because I didn't see it in the budget and was a little limited on time. However, I would like to bring that in front of the board tonight. So I will make a motion I will make a motion to add a cyber insurance protection part to our insurance policy. Is there a second? I'll just say that for a motion and a second just gets us to discussion, and then we can vote on it later. So is there a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Batman. Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to turn it over. Ed, tell us what you're proposing or what we're getting into.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Obviously, the cyber liability piece has become quite a large topic. Your situation is a little bit different in the fact that you are, smaller entity with probably not a lot of exposures to identity theft and or personal identifiable information. Okay, so there was an application that both Kyle and I processed last year. We will do that again. I think probably your biggest exposure would be just the personal information that you have on some type of drive, whether it be in the cloud, whether it be on an email, whatever you may have. If in the event it gets in the wrong party's hand, or potentially there is a ransom issue, there's coverage for that. To give you just an idea of the limits and what else may be covered in the price, at their basic level, which is $250,000, and the defense cost is on top of that, or outside of that. So there's no additional additional cost for the defense. Okay. You have what's called, you have data recovery, ransom demands, crisis management costs, public relations, forensic analysis, along with, in terms of the third party, like denial of services, judgments, claim settlements. That's all included in the $250,000. We can go higher with the limits to 500 to $1 million. Frankly, that's totally up to you. Again, I don't believe that your exposures are typical to a Seneca County level. But as your agent and looking out for your best interest, I have to propose, because I believe that there is some exposure to any entity at this point. To give you an idea of the premium at the base level, we're looking at between $300 and let's say $450 a year. Everybody's trying to minimize cost. I understand that. I, as your agent, have to tell you that I do recommend at least the low level to cover any exposures that you have. Kyle and I and Connie can get together maybe in the next week. Your renewal comes up in February. We don't expect any large increase at all. It'll be probably nominal at best. It's been flat for the last couple of years. There's a 2-page questionnaire that we can go through, and I can generate a firm number for you, but I do not expect, because of your budget and any other exposures you have, that it not be in excess of $500 a year.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay.
So
Yep.
just to sort of paraphrase what Ed told us, we have an optional coverage for cyber liability that would provide us with $250,000 per occurrence of coverage for between $300 and $450 per year on our insurance policy. We do not currently have it budgeted, though. I think our insurance policy runs something like $27,000, $28,000 a year. So, we're talking about 1.5% of the cost of that policy. I will also add that it's likely that the town will need to add a new building to their policy this year, since we are buying the church. I don't know what kind of premium increase that will bring. Ed has indicated that'll be fairly minimal too, but since I have you on the line here, Ed, can you give us any sort of idea of how drastic that may be, or how minimal is to you?
I went out and took a look when we had the conversation. My God, it had to be 4 or 5 months ago, maybe early summer. Certainly, it's a very good structure. I know you'll be doing some remodeling to that. Everything's based on the replacement cost. I would expect that replacement cost to be in or around $300,000 or $400,000, maybe slightly more, including there would be contents coverage, computers, desks, and so on. I do not expect that to be more than $750 to $1,000 additional cover or premium to the existing premium. It will be prorated because it will be mid-year, obviously. But I can firm up a number for you based on that. I can do that the same time that we do the cyber liability quote.
Great.
Okay.
So I just wanted the board to
If
keep
that's-
that in
if
mind
that's what-
because at some point we will face a premium increase because of that. I'd love to hear from each board member on how they feel about this. Let's start with Mr. Thomas. Sorry, I see you're on mute, but I'll put you on the spot anyway.
I'm good. Good. My question, I guess, would be the cybersecurity. I don't know if I heard everything, but there's personal information, but what about, is there the possibility of our bank accounts being hacked and actual funds withdrawn? And if that's the case, is there coverage for that?
There would be original coverage from the primary bank side, whoever your banking institution is.
Okay.
And there would be coverage. There would be coverage along with the with this account as well. On the I would have to confirm that, but yes, there is identity theft coverage for that. It would, along with the ransom coverage, which was also included in this premium.
I don't know if anyone's gonna want us, Ed.
Why?
I don't know,
why is that?
once the FEMA word gets out about that, you might lose.
Oh, that's true, but us, ransom meaning us, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah, right.
Luke, since you're on, go ahead. How you feel about it?
I don't have enough context to really to make an educated decision. Ed, can you give us an example of where your firm has paid out or where other firms have paid out in this area? Just like from a municipal perspective, what are those risks? I understand slip and fall and other things, but what's an example of something in New York State that your firm or another firm has supported the township, in something that's happened in this space?
I'll be honest with you. We've not had a exposure or a claim paid with any of our towns or villages. There have been towns and villages larger towns and villages that have been encroached with ransom. If there is a breach of your system that allows for personal information to be obtained, there's coverage for that. Again, I go back to, what do you have systems in place for? You have some personal computers that do town work. Connie has access to banking, but also personal information, tax information. Those are the questions that we need to ask in terms of service, backup, where is it stored? And it's that information that can be pulled and used, and then that third party comes back and sues the town because we didn't do our proper maintenance to secure those files. They come back and sue us for that. This kicks in to show proper coverage.
Got it.
Trevor, Paul, any questions or thoughts?
I err on the safe side, so I would agree.
Paul?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I guess my feeling, it seems like a pretty, in context of our full policy, it seems like a pretty minimal addition for the coverage that we receive. I do feel.
Did anybody talk to our IT department that does our backups and does all of that, see if there's a conflict of interest with that agreement?
This wouldn't be a conflict of interest. We have Jeff Burns contracted to manage our server and our backups and our email addresses.
Okay,
But Jeff, Jeff is not, in my understanding, Jeff is not capable of addressing if we were to be a target of any sort of hacking or anything. So Jeff would probably be just as locked up as the rest of us since he was, he's managing our stuff.
gotcha.
I was just saying, I sort of agree with Luke that, it's hard to justify this when we don't have any examples and it hasn't quite happened yet, especially being such a small target like Lodi. But my instinct says better safe than sorry.
I don't want to sound sarcastic in any ways. With the whole pandemic issue, I'm pretty sure that if we would have asked 1,000 people a year and a half ago, we have coverage for the pandemic, would you be willing to buy it? They would say, what are you, out of your mind? It's never going to happen. So
Good point.
just so you know, we've put together in the last month a letter to go out to all of our commercial entities, small and large, to at least solicit, to at least educate the same thing that I'm doing today. Just to give them a general idea that this is out there, coverage is provided, it's important, and it's relatively inexpensive for you, certainly because there's not that much exposure that you have. It's worth a discussion. But long term, I think it's something that every small entity or business needs.
So while we're here, Frank Fisher, let me ask you a question. Renewing this insurance policy every year, is this something that needs to be a resolution of the board to direct the supervisor, or is this, since it's already budgeted, I can just renew the policy by putting my name on it?
I think that what you need to do is check and see what we originally did in terms of establishing the need for insurance. It's likely that you have a resolution that simply says you have the authority to sign an insurance insurance policy rather, and I suspect that that's what it said originally. So I'd actually have to look at that before I could say, no, you need authorization every time you sign a contract. If it's renewed every year, I'd have to go back to the original resolution, and I don't see any particular reason why you couldn't pass a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an insurance policy on an annual basis.
Thank you, Frank. Luke, do you have any recollection of what you've done in history? Is it just a supervisor signature, or do you guys?
Yeah,
direct?
I think it's just a supervisor signature, Kyle. So it's your call. I know in a few cases we discussed the carrier we would use, but it's ultimately your call.
Sure. I just want to keep you guys fully in the loop and make sure that it's all above board. So that being said, any further discussion? I think I'd support this modest increase, depending on Ed's quote, of course. Does anybody have any more questions or comments?
Just one thing, Kyle.
Please.
It's really a question for Connie. Now, Connie, our electronic systems, like the law system that Judge uses, that is through the state. So that's a state laptop, that's a state software license that we have to pay, etc. What about
Correct.
the systems you use?
Town provided laptop, desktop, they're interchangeable. My personal computer is never used, nor is personal business as far as tax, anything, even as simple as a dog license done through my personal computer. I'm not that person.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly.
They're town-owned issues, laptops, not county or state, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
And Connie, the backups that we do are monthly backups of all of our town clerk and supervisor bookkeeper to the town server, correct?
Nightly, sir.
Nightly backups to the server. Okay.
Correct.
Ed, given that we're a very low risk and small community, Can we
Mhm.
do like a trial premium? Can you give us a little bit better deal on that and do a sale tonight for Kyle to get this done?
I wish I could. You know, I have no control. I can buy you guys a lunch someday.
No. I'd rather have the deal.
That's great. That's great. I will, Connie and Kyle, I will forward to Kyle. It's a very brief questionnaire. We did it last year. I think I sent it to Kyle. And any questions based on it. It's pretty straightforward. It also included Jeff Burns. You know, Jeff is a contractor. I'm not quite sure if he has his own insurance. And that's another thing I'd like to talk about briefly as well. But I'll get this over to you so you guys can complete. We can review it and get it in. Okay.
Great. So when he sends me that, I will forward it to all of the board members. At this time, I don't know if we need to take this to a vote or anything. I think we can just table this, and I'll share the information about the quote. And if it's not outrageous, you know, I think we should move forward. Does anybody have an objection to that?
No.
I'll move to table this resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Batman. Do we need to vote on that, Frank, or does it just get tabled?
You'd vote on any motion to table or postpone.
Any further discussion on the motion and the second to table? Hearing none, all those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion tabled. Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much. Looking forward to it. And thanks for making time tonight.
I appreciate it. I have one more comment, if you don't mind. I
Please.
just want to again, just reemphasize how important it is in terms of the indemnification to transfer risk. Any contract, any RFP that goes out, I think there's always a need to have proper identification in place to hold harmless, add the town is an additional insured. I think we went through that last year. I just want to reemphasize that. And if Frank is putting together the contracts, if I can be of any assistance for that insurance wording, it's become very important.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Ed.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Moving down the agenda, there are two more pieces of new business, one from Board Member Sibley, one from Board Member Thomas, and then we do have our slate of organizational resolutions. I think keeping with the theme tonight, we'll move on to the next individual topic. Mr. Sibley, would you like to introduce your motion or your idea?
Yeah, I spent some time going through the employee handbook for the employees. I believe Kyle has gotten all that information out to all the board members. To me, it's pretty self-explanatory. Not so much for probably everybody on the board. Is there anybody that has questions on anything that you're reading there?
Just for reference, I just posted the proposed changes in the chat box. I have it posted as a resolution for employee benefits. And Trevor, I'll just quickly go through these.
Sure.
I will say that these are all just simply Trevor's recommendations based on the research that he's done. Let me also say, Trevor, this is purely for our hourly highway guys, is that correct? Or is it for all highway employees?
That's for our highway guys, our town.
And does that include the superintendent and the deputy as well as the hourly guys?
I don't believe the superintendent has accrued time. I think it's because he has to put in a minimum hours. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick.
Chad's hourly, so he'd be involved. The superintendent don't collect no vacation or personal time or none of that stuff.
Correct.
Okay, so this would be for hourly employees of the town of Lodi. And I would say that this applies to primarily highway guys since we don't have any other hourly employees.
That's correct.
Increase sick time from 400 hours annually to 960 hours annually. Each employee accruing 8 hours of sick time per month. Increase clothing and equipment stipend to $350 per year for each employee to be awarded at the time of hiring and during the first pay period of each subsequent year. Award retiring employees their remaining paid sick time and vacation time, the maximum of which is 610 hours of sick time and 120 hours of vacation time. Add a $1,000 stipend each quarter for health insurance buyouts, provided the employee shows proof of health insurance to the town clerk upon hiring and by January 15th of each subsequent year. Add 25 cents hourly wage increase for every 5 years of service from hiring date for each employee. I'll add that some of this is already codified, the hourly wage increase, the health insurance buyouts. That is already town policy, as well as a clothing and equipment stipend. However, the sick time, the clothing and equipment stipend, and the payout upon retiring is what's new here. Also new is codifying the stipulation that employees must show proof of health insurance in order to receive their health insurance buyouts. And I think that covers the changes. Is that right, Trevor?
That's correct.
Okay. Trevor, would you like to make the motion officially to introduce this?
I would like to make the motion to introduce this, yes.
All right, so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Batman. Discussion.
Can someone quantify what we have right now? So I know we have, we've paid individuals in the past a lump sum quarterly, I believe, if they're using their spouse's insurance. Adding the proof of insurance, I think, is smart, and that protects our employees as well as us to make sure that there's proper coverage.
That's correct. It's just not in the policy right now, so we need to get something in black
Yeah.
for protecting us and the employees.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart ad. Everything else sounds reasonable. The price of clothing is expensive. I know the guys are hard on clothing, so that makes perfect sense. The only thing, can we talk a little bit more in the sick time rollout? That's good because that's incentive not to use your sick time. You get paid for it. My question is it sounded like 300 or 600 hours a year? Well, I didn't understand that.
Initially what's in the contract is 400 hours of sick time, Luke. The reason why I'm proposing to increase that to 960 is you take for instance, one of these guys end up at home, heaven forbid, somebody breaks a femur, breaks their shoulder, something like that. The 400 hours that they get, that they save up over time, isn't even enough to cover them for if they happen to get hurt outside the workplace. 960, 350 of the 960 hours, Luke, per the New York State retirement system, 350 hours of that can be turned in the New York State retirement system when they go to retire, and it puts forth time worked on their base for their retirement when they go to retire out from the town.
Hey, Trevor, Trevor, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I think you or I must have had a typo here. Sick time, 400 hours annually. I think it's 40 hours annually, correct?
The 400 hours is what they can save a year.
Yeah, that's right, a year.
400 hours annually.
No. That's
over time.
That's over the time. That's right. That's correct.
So if a guy's got 400 hours saved up, then he gets his 48 hours this year. He's got to use his 48 hours or lose it. So instead of making them use it or lose it, we're just trying to raise it to 960 to help out their state retirement at the end, to turn it in. So the town lately or before was just writing them a check for what the 400 hours or whatever they had saved at the end when they retired.
How much do they currently accrue per month or per year?
48 hours a year.
48 hours a year. Okay, so there is a typo in the resolution that we will have to make an amendment for.
Sorry about
that. No, yep, that's fine. So Luke, I think to answer that, it's the cap that they can hold. So they can currently hold 400 hours of sick time in their reserve. The proposal is to increase that to 960. And then are you also asking to increase the number of sick hours that they get per month or per year?
No, we weren't doing that.
No. This says with each employee accruing 8 hours of sick time per month, that would give them 96 hours of sick time per year. So that would be doubling sick time.
No, so it's going to be 8 hours a month. Based on the old contract, it was saying something like 4.6 something every 2 weeks. So just to keep it simple for Nancy, if you just keep it on a baseline at 8 hours a month, that's what they get accrued time towards their goal of 960.
Okay, so that, I mean, that would be an increase from 48 hours per year to 96 hours per year, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. So with that discussion, let's do the amendment real,
What is
quickly.
the amendment? I'm so confused.
We
I don't
haven't,
know
we haven't
what-
offered the amendment yet. I just want to figure out how to word it here. So Trevor, do you know what it's called, or Chad, or anybody who, or Rick? Is it your, that total time? Is it just called a reserve? Is it, does anybody know the terminology for it?
For what are we talking about, Pat?
Like the sick time that you're holding in reserve, you know, like that 400 hours?
It'd be cruel is what it's.
Accrual, thank you. So I'm just gonna make a simple amendment here. In the first line after be it resolved, it says increase sick time from 400 hours annually to 960 hours annually. I would like to offer an amendment that says increase sick time accrual from 400 hours to 960 hours.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that would leave it at eight hours a month, right?
Yep. So I'm just removing a couple of words here and adding the word accrual. I'm adding accrual and I'm removing 400 hours annually and 960 hours annually.
Yeah, and I don't think annual is in there at all. It's just, this is what they can accrue up to is the 400 hours a month. That's what it was in the old part of the handbook. What I am proposing now is to go up to 960. It's not annually, it's over the duration of the time frame.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Got you.
And Trevor and team, who pays for the difference? So we want our guys to get a better pad when they retire, right? That, I think we're all aligned there.
Yeah.
Who pays for that extra hours to get them to 960? Does the state pay? Or do we pay a portion of it? How does that work?
So it's just whatever it is that we set up. I mean, essentially you're going to be paying, what is it, 210 hours extra of what normally has been done based on the old contract, only because I'm proposing to be able to allow the highway department men to be able to withhold a bigger amount over their career. Technically,
Right. That's cool. No, I get that. But when we get to the end, so if we're 400 now or 400 and change, and we move up to 960, when the team member retires,
yep,
where does that money for those days come from? Is that the state?
We pay that, right, Trevor? Not the state retirement system?
Not the state retirement system. Based on past practices, the town would be paying the employees at retirement time.
Okay, so we pay for the difference.
That's
And
correct.
do we have, just as an example, what that cost would be? So let's say we take $20, right?
Sure.
So we
Yeah,
take $20 an hour
Math, yes.
times 960.
You
That's
wouldn't be doing 960, Luke, because most any employee would be taking, you'd only be talking 610.
Okay.
Because 350 of that 960, they're going to turn in to the New York State retirement system to help them get more of a monthly payment at the end of every month.
Okay, so if we took a max of 610 and we say $20 an hour is what they'll retire at, that's just figuratively an even number.
That's correct.
That means we have a lump sum payout of 12.2 as a thank you and a sort of send away on retirement.
Let me offer an alternative set of numbers. If they retired today with a 400-hour accrual, we would pay them $8,000. If they retired today with a 960-hour accrual, we would pay them $19,200.
Yes. So what I would say is if we're going to pay this, we have to not only make the motion to allege in the future that we're going to do this, but we need to plan for it on the financial side.
Yes,
that's
it doesn't
correct.
seem like it's such a significant amount, but if we planned a little bit each year, budgeted for a little bit each year, and we know the number of employees we have, that'd probably work out really well.
That's exactly right. That's the reason why it's important that we go over this handbook, whether it's all of us that are on the board now to go over this or something to keep going on a yearly basis. So that way it's easier planning for when it comes time for the next person that's eligible for retirement. Now, the sick time's only paid out for retirement purpose only, not resigning, going off to another job. This is for retirement only.
Right.
I
And we-
now I want to add a couple of things here. I want to ask Luke if you think it's most prudent to form an employee retirement reserve fund or something like that.
Yeah, guys, I do, you know, I we don't have to put much in it, but it shows the team that we're committed to having it there.
Absolutely.
Versus saying, oh, we don't have any money, we're sorry, we're done, we can't give you anything. And I guess the way I look at it too, with the proposal, is it's technically their time. If they're eligible for 48 hours a year for sick time, and they don't take it, that's time that they're working. So it's their time anyways.
Yep.
Right? You know, this may not foster, this may foster a behavior where people come to work sick because they're, you know, they want to get a payout when they retire 20 years from now. But I don't know. I think it's a good thing. All I'm saying is plan
Just-
for it.
Just for an overview, mine is on the county level is like 1,600 hours. And it's going to take me a matter of 12 years of never calling in sick and whatnot to accrue that with
Yeah.
rollover and stuff. But that you're talking union versus a non-union shop, which
Yeah.
the town is.
Sure.
And I guess
So let me, go ahead, Luke. I'm sorry.
Just one more thing, team. And if we do create it, there's not much that needs to be put in each year, but one more thing. How many of our teams, of Rick's team that we have today, how many people, how many in the group actually are on a track record to achieve this? Do you see what I mean? Is it,
I would hope all of them.
Well, so I think, that's sort of a multi-layered question, Luke. I have very limited understanding of the state retirement system, but I believe the minimum that you have to work is 10 years.
Yep,
Oh,
to be vested, and you got to be at 55 years of age, but
yeah.
there's
No,
the different tier levels.
I'm not thinking vesting, just the two other thoughts. One is not so much vesting, meaning do we have an employee today that has saved all their sick time and they have 200 hours of accrual? Or are
Two.
all of our employees today using just about every sick day in the year, meaning it kind of makes this exercise a moot point because we don't have any team members that have really a good accrual like what Trevor has at the county.
Rick?
I got one that's got probably a couple $100 and one's got about 150.
Then we're good. Then I
So-
think that makes sense. Yep. And
Now,
then the next thing,
Go ahead, Luke. I'm sorry.
sorry, Kyle,
Oh,
one more
okay.
thing. The state, when you retire, you often hear people say, oh, they retired from the state, but they can't take another job or they can only have so much income. Is there any impact on a lump sum of 20K or 10K that would prevent them from getting it? Meaning we save it, we set the expectation that our team will get it when they retire, and it comes time to retire and there's a restriction with the state.
No, because it's about $32,000 as of today's date, Luke.
Got Okay.
And then, so I'd like to piggyback on that a little bit. I like to read other towns' minutes and see what they're doing and how they do business. I caught something recently that I didn't like. I saw a fellow town supervisor in another town retire on December 29th of a very recent year, so he could collect his state retirement. He was reelected and began serving his next term on January 1st. Trevor, I know you just said basically like, we don't want to do this. We don't want a guy to retire and then go work at a different job.
That's correct. That's why the wording needs to be put for retirement. The payout for sick time is for retirement only. Already in the handbook that was approved in 2008 is the vacation time at separation is paid out, which is the max of 120 hours. That's why it's worded for retirement basis only on the sick time, because that's a higher dollar amount than the 120 hours.
Sure. So again, let me just have the exercise here. If I work for 10 years, accruing my 8 hours of sick time per month, hit my 960 hour maximum, and I'm 40 years old and I say it's time to retire, I retire from the town of Lodi, I get my lump sum payment, and then what? Do
You
we
wouldn't,
have,
you wouldn't be able to do that
why not?
because the retirement age for retiring out of a municipality like that, you're talking anything above 55 years old.
Okay, so you have to be 55 to collect state retirement?
55 or older, depending on what tier you are. That's correct. The new tiers, which I believe the 2 new hires possibly that Rick hired in, you're talking, I think to get your 60% of what you make is 66 years old. You got to work till.
It's all good. I feel a lot better knowing that you have to be 55. I don't think anybody's gonna try to
You're
put
pretty
us too
close.
bad on that one. Connie, I will email you a new copy of the PDF as amended.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Kyle, can I
think I have
interrupt
to get my
again?
second on the amendment, right, Frank?
Kyle, can I just interrupt a second?
Please.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I hate to belabor this, but in that first bullet point, am I understanding then that the word annually is not correct? We're talking about a maximum accrual of 960 hours, not $960 annually,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, Frank, I offered an amendment to
Okay.
change the language on that to just say
Okay.
increase sick time accrual from 400 to 960.
Yeah, but the word annually that is after that is eliminated.
Yes, I struck that. Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Just to be safe, I know we have a motion and a second for the resolution. I am making the motion for the amendment to increase sick time accrual from 400 hours to 960 hours, with each employee accruing 8 hours of sick time per month. Is there a second for the amendment?
Second.
Second from Mr. Sibley. Thank you. Any further discussion or questions or comments about this policy? Hearing none, we need to vote on the amendment first. All of those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Amendment carried. Back to the resolution at hand. Do we need to take any further action, or is there any further comment on the resolution itself?
I just question as far as the increase for clothing and equipment. Did you say that that was already included in the new budget?
Seth,
Yeah,
it's already in play, Seth. What I'm proposing is you do it on the first quarter of the year. So that way you're writing one check instead of, like I go out and get $25 worth of clothes, turn in my receipt, and then, you just, so somebody, it's basically for keeping track of. There's already a policy in there in the handbook that states that you are to be wearing your proper attire. And that's going to be in the discretion of the highway superintendent to make sure that his employees are coming to work in a safe manner. They're not coming with holey jeans, their boots don't have holes in them. So basically what it does is instead of writing, how you see throughout the year, you see different times that we're paying out to
Famous brands.
famous clothes or famous brands or the boots. You're just putting it all in one lump sum. You're going to cut that check for that employee for the beginning of the year. That carries him throughout that year till the following year. And then, so say one of the employees end up leaving 6 months, say they end up, Rick hires somebody in July. You want to be able to cover that guy when he comes in July. All right, here's a check of $350. You need to go get your PPE boots. You need to go get your clothing, and plain and simple. And then you start over again.
So sort
Yeah,
of taking away the big brother aspect of having to approve their individual purchases.
That's
Sure,
correct.
and that I think that makes total sense. I was just asking whether this was an increase of the amount of money towards that we've already approved for the 2021 budget, or is it the same, or is it, this is just a procedural change?
Rick,
Yeah,
is
it's
it
just-
300 or 350?
300 or 350?
350.
Okay, so it's not an increase. My apologies.
Yeah, nothing changed. It's just on how we pay it out to make it simpler and easier for everybody.
Okay, yeah.
I had thought it was 300. That's my bad side. Any further questions or comments on this resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Trevor. Nice motion. Give me 1 second just to organize myself here so I can send this to Connie.
And Connie, as soon as I get off quarantine, I'll get your book back so you could be able to.
Oh, honey, you go ahead, take your time now.
Okay.
I do have a copy, Trevor, but thank you. Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Connie, I'm pressing send now on that amended resolution.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next piece of new business. Mr. Thomas has a resolution for planning board direction. Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, sure. This is something I think I brought up in previous meetings, but just want to make it into a formal resolution. Wanted the planning board committee to commit to coming up with viable options for the two town properties. The one, the vacant lot that was the proposed site for the new town hall, which we've now changed. And then also the current town hall building for when we do move locations, something is going to have to happen with that. And I don't want to wait, years down the road. I think it's a good idea to get ideas started. So I'm just proposing that the planning committee comes up with 3 options for both sites. And then if there's any demolition or construction, that they get some estimates in for costs. I know it's very far in the future, but if you're talking about someone demolishing the Masonic Temple, the current town building, I would need to know some ballpark figure of how much that would cost, so that we're not just, I don't want just ideas, I want some numbers behind them so we can make a better decision.
Thank you. Would anybody like me to read the resolution as written?
Yes, please.
Whereas the future of the current town hall building, the former Masonic Temple, needs to be considered and addressed. Whereas the future of the vacant plot of land owned by the town of Lodi at the corner of West Church and North Washington Streets in the village of Lodi needs to be considered and addressed. Whereas the town of Lodi intends to use, convert for use, or sell the properties listed above. Now therefore it be resolved that the town Lodi board requests a report of recommendations with 3 proposed actions or uses for the properties listed above from the Lodi Planning Board. If demolitions or new construction is necessary for any of the recommended options, the Lodi Planning Board should provide estimates of associated costs. And be it resolved that the report shall be publicly presented to the Lodi Town Board by a member of the Lodi Planning Board no later than May 13th, 2021.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd like to think I'm getting good at writing legislation. I hope Frank Fisher's proud of me, but we'll see. So Mr. Thomas has made a motion for this resolution. I will second that motion. On to discussion. Anybody have any questions or thoughts about this?
I like it. I thank you. Thanks for being proactive and getting, started on the next steps for those properties. Good job.
Yep, good job.
Great. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. I'll provide the resolution to Mr. Ahaus, the chairman of the planning board, and instruct him, direct him to direct the planning board into action. Okay, the last piece of new business we have are our organizing resolutions, our organizational resolutions. Let me see how many I have here. 1, 2, 3. I have 13. They are listed on the second page of the agenda, which I will repost the agenda in the chat box. And I will quickly read each of these resolutions as they come up. I won't read all of them because some of them are long. First up is rules of procedure. guess I'll post each of these in the chat box as we go. Again, all of these are sort of housekeeping items that we do every year. Rules of procedure outline when our meetings are held and what our agenda looks like. Our committees, how to propose resolutions, parliamentary voting and procedure, public hearings. It's everything outside Robert's Rules of Order. I'll make a motion to propose resolution for rules of procedure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Batman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Next up,
One
Deputy-
moment, I can't
Yep.
write that. 1 second.
oh, it's all good. Sorry about that, Connie.
Sorry.
I was gonna try to whip through these here.
I'm good, go.
Next up is a resolution for deputy appointments. I will move to nominate Luke Latini as deputy supervisor and Chad Parsons as deputy highway superintendent. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Thomas. Any discussion? Luke, I probably should have asked you if you'd like to continue on in the role.
Sure. I will abstain from the vote, however.
Fair enough. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Second, the second was Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Thomas on the second, with
Thank you.
Mr. Latini abstaining from the vote. So you have a 4-0 vote.
Credit.
Okay. Committee appointments can be made at the direction of the supervisor, so no need to pass that by board resolution. Registrar of Vital Statistics. I'll introduce a motion to resolve that Connie Rosbaugh be appointed as the Registrar of Vital Statistics for the town of Lodi. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Second by Mr. Latini. Any discussion? Please continue doing a good job, Connie. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Next resolution is for the cemetery superintendent. I'll move to resolve that Walter Bubb be appointed as cemetery superintendent for the town of Lodi. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Second from Mr. Latini. Sorry, Trevor, I know you're trying to get in there.
No problem.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Bookkeeper is next. I will introduce a motion to resolve that Nancy Swartwood be appointed as the bookkeeper for the town of Lodi. Is there a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Sibley. Got it there.
Good
Any
job,
discussion?
Trevor.
Nancy's done a very good job. I'm very impressed with her. Very happy that we were able to get her on. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Up next is dog control officer. I will move to resolve to appoint Jamie Van Gallio to a animal control officer for the town of Lodi to serve a term of 1 year, ending December 21st, 2021, at an annual salary of $3,330. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Latini, I believe. Any discussion? I will note that the last time I spoke to Jamie, she was in the process of moving to Seneca Falls or Waterloo due to personal reasons. It did give me a bit of concern that she would not be as local as she was before. She has not given any indication that she'd like to step down. My understanding is that she'll be able to maintain her facilities and continue to do the job. But I do think that this is something we should keep an eye on or an ear out for as the year goes on.
Yeah, for sure, Kyle. And that's a hard role to fill.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. As far as I know, she's continuing on with Ovid as well. So, I think we're going to be okay, but I'll try to keep an eye on it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. 5 to go, 6 to go. Financial institutions. I will move to resolve to make Five Star Bank and Community Bank as our designated depositories in which the supervisor, town clerk, justice, and other employees can deposit monies coming into the town. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Batman. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Financial audit resolution. I will move that Lee Walter CPA to perform an audit of the 2020 financials for the town court, town supervisor, and town clerk as soon as they are able to do so. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sibley. I will add a piece of discussion here, which is, I was informed that by Mr. Fisher that it is general practice to appoint a town board member to audit the books of the town clerk and town court and the supervisor. Is that correct, Mr. Fisher?
That's my understanding, yes. You're doing your annual audit.
Yeah, so I spoke to a couple of other supervisors, some of which do appoint board members to do so, some of which do not, and some of which appoint a CPA to do so. I felt comfortable with the latter, but I would love to hear if anybody knows better.
Yeah, Kyle, my 2 cents on it is we used to, years ago, one of the board members would be selected to do the audit. I know I worked with Winnie Jones in doing a financial audit of the judges, the judicial program. And although it's a good learning experience for the auditor, I'm not sure, unless you're really keen on financial accounting, that you really are certifying anything. So my recommendation, and I did it, I filled out the paperwork, but you know what, it was kind of meaningless. I didn't have the expertise, learned a lot on how much money we took in, versus what we spent. But at the end, my vote would be, and my recommendation is to hire that type of, even though it be a truncated, smaller report, find a certified licensed person, spend a couple $100 and have it done.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I agree.
Sounds good. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Pay rates. Don't think we passed this one last year, but I was encouraged to do so. We do issue our annual budget, and all of our pay rates are in the budget, which is on our town website. However, here is a resolution that establishes the pay rates that have been adopted as part of that 2021 budget. I will move this as a resolution, but I would also like to offer an amendment based on information that I got from our town attorneys. So I'll move the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Batman. At this point, I'd like to offer an amendment. Mr. Miras had encouraged us to add our seasonal hourly pay rate to this resolution. So I am typing that now. Minimum wage this year, state minimum wage is $12.50. Rick, can you speak to what your seasonal hourly pay rate is?
I think the paper she gave me that it was a $13.50 for somebody that's been there quite a while.
Would you hire a new seasonal hire at $13.50?
Yeah, if we had to run wing or something,
Okay.
had to have somebody run wing in the wintertime, I'd probably pay him that.
Okay, so I will move to offer an amendment to add our seasonal hourly pay rate to this resolution at $13.50. May I have a second for the amendment, please?
Second.
Second from Mr. Batman. All those in favor of, any discussion for the amendment? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. The amendment is added. Back to the resolution itself. Is there any discussion or comments on the pay rates that have been listed, or would anybody like me to read any of them?
I think I have a suggestion.
Sure, Paul, what do you got?
I think I would like board members to get $1,217.60.
A very, very modest raise, which we did not budget for, Paul.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
I will add that this is, we did not give town board members a pay raise this year, though we could certainly consider it going forward. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Connie, do you need me to send you an amended copy, or are you able to amend that resolution yourself?
I can do it myself, thank you. It's
Thank you.
already done, actually.
Fantastic. 3 left, our official media designation. I will move. Yes.
Did I miss something? I have attorney, official media, mileage rate, and committee appointment.
The last 3 that we just did were financial institutions, financial audit, and pay rates. The next 3 that we're going to do is official media, mileage, and town attorney.
I know, but I have 4 left.
What's the 4th one you have left?
Committee appointments.
Oh, Mr. Fisher informed me that that's not subject to board resolution, any committee appointments, so we announce them, so I'm just not even gonna bother.
Perfect. I have 3 too then. Thank you.
Thank you. Official media, I will move to resolve that we name the Ovid Gazette and the Finger Lakes Times as our official newspapers for the town of Lodi. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Latini. Connie, I'd like to make a note here. We got some feedback throughout the year. Well, we got one piece of feedback in regards to our public notices around the water, that the Shopper is, quote, a throwaway newspaper. And so since we have named the Ovid Gazette and the Finger Lakes Times as our official media, I think it would be prudent to ask you to not advertise in the Shopper anymore when we list our meetings. Does the board have an opinion about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a throwaway paper to some, but not to all, Kyle. That the Shopper's free entity that comes in everybody's mailbox. Whether they decide to throw it away or not, that's on them.
Yeah.
Good call, man.
I agree.
With the Finger Lakes Times and possibly the Shopper more so than the Ovid Gazette. I know that's the one that the county uses, but for me, you know, one is affording, what is it, $210 subscription for the Finger Lakes Times to come to your mailbox versus the free one that I get in the mailbox. I enjoy reading that. So it's not for everybody, don't get me wrong. That's why I think you're proper and covering for the Finger Lakes Times, but I do highly recommend keeping it into the Shopper.
Trevor, I personally agree with you. I think as much communication as we can have with the public is a good idea. I have a personal concern about the amount of money that we are spending in the Shopper each year when they are not designated as an official newspaper, but I'm certainly not going to fight to communicate less with the public. I'll say that. So.
Well, wait till you get the bill to put it in the Finger Lakes Times.
Fair enough. I know I subscribe to the Ovid Gazette, and I used to enjoy that newspaper a lot more than I do now. They've really cut back on their content locally, at least.
Yep.
So the resolution is to appoint the Ovid Gazette and the Finger Lakes Times as our official newspapers. I think we have optionally advertised in the Shopper before. I'm open to the direction of the board, how we want to codify this going forward.
I'll make a motion for the Finger Lakes Times and the Shopper. I don't know if everybody else agrees with me or not.
I'll second that. I do agree.
Okay.
So it's
Hold on one
The
second, Connie.
Shopper minus the Gazette. Do I have a clear understanding?
That is the motion for Mr. Sibley and Mr. Latini on the table, though my motion for Times and Gazette is still active. I don't quite know how to handle that. I suppose if the board approved, we could table my resolution and offer Trevor's resolution. Mr. Thomas, Mr. Vatman, do you have an opinion?
That or just amend your resolution.
Right. Amend yours, Kyle. That, yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough, fair enough. Trevor, or I'm sorry, Seth?
I'm on the, I'm in agreement with everybody else. Like, I think that the shopper is, because it's free,
Reach is
That-
free house.
right. And that just means even if people don't read it, like Trevor says, they can,
Get it.
versus all the people that don't have subscriptions to papers, which is a lot of people. We're not going to be doing ourselves any favor by not putting anything in the shopper anymore. So, yeah.
Okay. That's great. So, yeah, so I will offer an amendment to eliminate the Ovid Gazette as our official newspaper and add the Seneca County Shopper instead. Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Okay, Kyle, can I interject here again, if you don't mind?
Oh, please.
I actually wrote a memo for your predecessor on this very point. It's questionable whether, and unfortunately, I don't know, I don't recall that memo and its relationship to that particular paper, but that memo was based on the idea that there is some case law out there to the effect that a paper that is not used for the dissemination of news or something like that, in other words, a penny saver type paper, is not considered a newspaper for purposes of giving public notice. I think it depends on the nature of the paper. I mean, is the paper one that prints news stories and things of that nature, or is it primarily a thing for advertising? And so that is why I think that was put in there, with the idea that it would be an additional source of notice, but that the actual newspaper that you needed to be sure that you advertised in was the one that was actually printing news, which was the Ovid Gazette, or alternatively the Geneva Times. So I think that eliminating the Ovid Gazette and relying strictly, again, I'd have to look at the paper and or maybe somebody can tell me whether or not it actually is a newspaper, because that it seems to be what the court opinions hinge on.
I do see a comment in our chat box from a resident saying that circulars are not considered newspapers. They're classified as junk mail. And then with Mr. Fisher's comments, I think that's worth consideration, even though we don't have all the information in front of us. Should, I guess the question is, we have optionally advertised in the shopper in the past. Should we continue to leave that at the clerk's discretion, or should we codify that as part of how we advertise here? Does anybody have an opinion on that?
Well, I think as long as we have the Finger Lakes Times in there, right?
Yep.
So that becomes the what you might say the official newspaper of record. But having the shopper included will give the option of notifying a lot more people.
Should we go all three, or should we go back to the original resolution and allow the clerk to add the shopper at her discretion?
We asked, like, how much money, Connie, do you think you spend in a year in the shopper?
My personal monies that I advertise for is I do my tax season, which is warrant by law to advertise. But other than that, those are all board members, supervisor, PDFs, things like that. Mine personally is probably a few $100s.
Yeah, every meeting is announced, every RFP is announced. I don't have the numbers in front of me either about how much we've spent on each, but
I think this year it was a bit higher, a little astronomical compared to my first couple years here. Our FEMA projects, those RFPs, requests for proposals, new buildings, water projects, FEMA projects, that's accumulative. And with that accumulation is where we're seeing these high bills. $700 and some odd dollars it costs just to print one RFP, but by law, you have to match certain criteria. So I think that we could find ways to save some money by, we had did last time at Kyle's recommendation, we request them to seek out the website for further detail. I think that we could cut some money back on wordage and periods, dots, all those things count in there.
And the size of the ad.
Yeah, size of the ad, content, if it's a legal notice versus a public notice, those are different expenditures. Legal notices are highly expensive. I can't give you a specific example per bills. I could look them up immediately if you wanted me to.
So
I
How
think-
about
Go
the
ahead.
different papers? Is there a price difference in advertising in the Shopper versus the price of advertising in the Gazette for like the same ad?
Give or take a few dollars. I think the Ovid Gazette, I primarily post in the Gazette and the Shopper, one as a legal newspaper, the secondary as a secondary notice, which we had just discussed, the Shopper. I think the Gazette is $29 for a average ad, and I think the Shopper is $35. But again, it depends on the size, criteria, things like that. Information, I guess, is what it boils down to, what we're trying to let the people know. Your average notice of a board meeting or a special meeting, a public notice, that's $29. Does that
Connie,
answer it?
if I can cut you off a little bit, I think I'd like to say that I would encourage us to continue on with our 2 official newspapers as we did last year. Leave Connie the room to continue advertising in the Shopper per her budget. And then just for us board members to keep a closer eye on the bills as they come across from the Shopper and maybe the other ones too. And if we see anything that's not in the right range, then we can maybe take action then. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how about when, I'll take specific instruction, when you are requesting something to be posted, if you request it to be in a specific only, I'm willing to oblige that.
So by passing this, we have to advertise every single one of our notices in those 2 newspapers, no matter what. And then the Shopper
Okay.
is at your option, which I think we've decided that since it gets to every house, it's probably a good option. So there are a number of motions on the table. I think there are 2 actually, one from me and one from Trevor. Trevor, would you like to rescind your motion?
Just one more quick question. Do we have to have 2 newspapers? Because we can cut down on the cost if we just did the Finger Lake Times and or the Ovid Gazette, correct? Or do we?
I think we just need one. I do think we just need one.
So why don't we cut it down to just the Ovid Gazette, and then the alternative would be that would help save the little bit of money that we put for the Shopper. What does everybody else think?
I like that.
Yep, I like it too. Connie, is that any issue for you?
No issue for me. So boil it down to me exactly what it is, so I have a
Yeah,
clear understanding.
okay, so my resolution is on the floor. We have a second on it. Mr. Sibley is offering an amendment to strike the Finger Lakes Times from the resolution. Is there a second for Mr. Sibley's amendment?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Latini. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor of approving the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Amendment is approved. The resolution on the table establishes the Ovid Gazette and only the Ovid Gazette as our official newspaper, though the clerk does have, the vocabulary is failing me now. She can advertise in the Shopper should she choose to do so. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Motion carried. Nice job, guys. That was a good one. Okay. 2 left, mileage reimbursement. This is altered from last year. Actually, I need to make an amendment to it. I'm so sorry. I will move to resolve that the mileage be paid at a rate of 58 cents per mile. for any, shall be paid to town officials and employees for use of their personal vehicles for town business. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sibley. After I sent these notices to the attorneys, Mr. Meares informed me that the 2021 IRS standard mileage rate has been reduced to 56 cents. So we need to amend this to either reduce the mileage rate from 58 to 56 or strike the line that says based on the 2021 IRS standard mileage rate. Does anybody have an opinion on where the mileage should land?
We need to keep it where it's at because the gas prices are gonna go up.
Okay, so I will move to amend this resolution to strike the line that says based on the 2021 IRS standard mileage rate. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Batman. Any discussion about that? Hearing none, we're going to vote on the amendment. All those in favor of striking the line based on the 2021 IRS standard mileage rate, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. The resolution on the floor is to establish our mileage rate at 50 cents per mile, 58 cents per mile. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
What time is
It is 9:09 and we will enter our last resolution. I will move to resolve that Mighty Meares and Ricky LLP be named our town attorneys in accordance with the retainer agreement for the town of Lodi. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Paul or Lou?
Yeah.
Paul, thank you. Second from Mr. Beck. Any discussion? I've enjoyed their services. I think they do a good job. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Those are our organizational amendments. We have one last piece of business, which is to establish our next meeting date. Through our rules of procedure, the second Thursday of the month is our standard meeting date. However, we have taken care of a number of town business, of a bunch of town business today, so I do not think that meeting is necessary. I will introduce a motion to cancel our regular January meeting that is currently scheduled for January 14th. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Latini. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Those are all of our new business. Is there any other new business from the floor this evening? I hear none. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on anything else this evening? I will thank Ed Boudreau, Jim Covert, Judy David, somebody named Voorhees, and looks like Michael Cimino here for staying to the entirety of our 2-hour-plus meeting. Our next meeting date will be February 11th. That is the second Thursday in February, and we will again be meeting right here online via Zoom. Is there a motion from the floor to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Batman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sibley. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. It's a great meeting. Good way to start off the year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, how many people joined in audience? I didn't realize that was something I should put in the minutes. How many people?
Sure. Give me just a moment to see if I can find that answer for you.
Did you say 20? I don't know what.
Well, we have 13 active at the moment, Connie, but I'll need to end the meeting to be able to tell you that.
All right. Let me
Thanks,
know
everybody.
later. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.